are officially living the authentic life today, and the stories about how we all got here are truly authentic and part of it.
Yeah.
But I invited these amazing ladies to talk about the Astrodome. And if you grew up in Houston, or even if you didn't, you know it is the 8th wonder of the world. It is something that is so meaningful. So we have Beth, is it Wiedower? Wiedower. Well, Danae Cremosta, nobody knows how to say all that. Phoebe Tudor. These women have done so much for community. You have such heart for connecting people in a way through looking at the heritage, looking at the architecture, looking at the parks, looking at the arts. There's so many meaningful things that happen in our city. But what I found interesting in researching you guys coming is I really became so passionate about my journey with the Astrodome growing up here. So why don't you tell a little bit, you start, Beth, like how did you pick this as your passion project?
How did it choose me, right?
Exactly.
That's how that goes oftentimes. I've been in the field of historic preservation and cultural heritage preservation for 20 years plus now, and actually came to Houston to work with and on the Astrodome. Worked for a national nonprofit and was recruited to Houston with this project in mind. Did that, met Phoebe through that work, and several years into it, had an opportunity to jump from board member of the Conservancy over to the executive director side of things. And so my 10 years in Houston have been centered on the Astrodome since we got here. There's lots of other amazing things that we've learned about the city, but I really have been committed to the Astrodome since I became a Houstonian.
Yes, and thank goodness she came here.
Well,
We're so lucky.
I presume you were probably part of that.
Well, I met Beth when she was here, and this was in 2013. Mm-hmm. So we can talk a lot about the evolution of the Astrodome, but it had been closed since 2009, and that was the lead up to the previous bond election. So the National Trust for Historic Preservation is the organization that Beth has worked for all these years, and it's the national kind of overview organization for historic preservation in the country. And I was not on the board at that time. I am now the vice chair of the board for the National Trust. But they had declared the Astrodome one of the 11 most endangered buildings in the country.
Oh, I didn't even know there was such a thing.
Yes. And it is such a great program because it brings national attention to things around the country that are in danger of being demolished. And ever since it closed, there were rumors that it might be demolished. And, you know, anybody who cares about history, anybody who grew up in Houston who loves the Astrodome would just throw up their hands and say, oh my God, we can't let that happen. But how do you affect that? So that was one really good start, was the declaration of the 11 most endangered buildings. And then Beth, you came soon after that, right?
So we at the National Trust, after elevating, it's a great tool to elevate buildings in need or buildings that are threatened. And as a result of that listing, the Trust looked around the country to try and find comparable projects to guide any sort of redevelopment of the Astrodome. And what we found was there wasn't a template. There's not a been done project that we could model an Astrodome redevelopment or preservation project after. And so that's when they said, how about move to Houston? And it just so worked out in my life that the timing was right. And my boyfriend at the time was also looking at Houston. And so we thought, well, we'll give it a shot. And here we are 10 years later and a couple of kids and working our way, kind of inching away at the Astrodome. So it really is a wonderful tool to bring that national attention to the Astrodome. And I think it served as a catalyst to raise awareness in Houston of its national significance. So I think in preservation, oftentimes we see that when you live next to a building or you've grown up with a building, or in the case of the Astrodome, when the building was built during your lifetime, recognizing its significance can be a little difficult. And so having that national organization and the national title of not only the 11 most endangered, but then a national treasure once the work began, the advocacy work began on the Astrodome, helps local folks recognize, oh, this is our landmark, this is our icon, this is an identifier for our city, and we need to embrace this.
And there's such an effort for sustainability, recycling, reusing. And I was sharing with Phoebe before you arrived. Before I was the Vintage Contessa, I had a 22-year career in the construction industry working with my family business. We have a marble and granite company. And I became a lead AP. And I really got behind looking at what we're doing with as a country, as the world, what we're doing. And obviously what we do now as the Vintage Contessa is choose bags and jewelry and pieces that have longevity and have a life, and we're not adding to this these landmines. It's not. And certainly I love buying a dress from Target and throwing on a Chanel jacket over it. I'm not completely condemning it, but at the same time, we need to look at what we're doing with the world, and construction costs are so high. So I was reading last night about the UN and their initiatives to make the world a better place. And one of them is poverty, but another thing is the sustainability idea and the success of economics around in each community. So it is about the economics and who we're bringing to the community and how that provides jobs and how we're servicing. I have chills thinking about the people that came from Katrina and were housed there, and that affected people leaving this horrible, like they lost their whole lives and everything, and they had a place to go. Like there is truly a change in a community. It's not just about a building. It's so much deeper than that. So maybe talk a little bit about your emotions in that realm.
Well, I love the way you tied it to sustainability. And we mentioned before, the most sustainable thing you can do with a building is not tear it down. You know, imagine the landfill that would be if the Astrodome were demolished. And so that is kind of a sidebar on historic preservation. Like, let's not just treat buildings like they're disposable. And yeah, I love new buildings too, but new buildings aren't necessarily better than old buildings. Old buildings just have that soul. They have that history that's built into it. And I think particularly the Astrodome, because all the memories that are associated with the Astrodome. And it was the first dome stadium, and it was just this kind of amazing big idea for Houston in the middle of the 60s. So
innovative.
I think it strikes me, the Astrodome really is the symbol. I mean, it still is the symbol of Houston, but at mid-century, it was the symbol of the country. I mean, you can't do that. Yes, we can. You can't go to space, to the moon. Yes, we can. You can't, mine resources from Middle Earth. Yes, we can. So we were doing so many things. There was so much innovation coming out of Houston. To drop this dome right in the middle of it just really embodied what the city and what the country at mid-century were feeling and doing, and that's really powerful. But I think what strikes me the most in all my years in historic preservation, oftentimes when we talk about the why a building's significant, why a place or a cultural occurrence matters, it has to do with the people or the event that it's associated with, or the architecture. And certainly the Astrodome has all of that. But when I come to Houston, knowing the city and really unfamiliar with Houstonians, the stories I hear about the Astrodome are because we had the same seats for 12 seasons of the Astros game with my grandfather, because I saw Selena there with my mom, and it was the last time we were together. I mean, it really is. It was Houston's living room. for almost 40 years. And that's powerful. I mean, that's the kind of connection that as a preservationist, I want to harness and put back into this building. Let's create another community hub, another living room for Houston. It's going to look different. It may serve a different purpose, but it can still be that community hub again in the future.
Talk about authentic. Those are authentic memories that people tell us all the time.
And I was just saying to my husband, this is kind of a tangent, but I'm going to bring it back in. I dream about my grandmother, and I dream about her in her house, and I want to go to her house, but it was destroyed in she lived in Beaumont, and it's not something that I can go to. And I said, it's interesting that we can go to places to make us feel something or connected to people. And I've done a lot of research on authenticity, and one of the things I found was blue zones, and there's 9 characteristics where people live in communities and they have an abnormally high number of centenarians or people that live to 100. 7 of the 9 are about connection. So it's really a big part of enabling, and it's about community. It's about generations getting together. I have chills when I say that, because I believe that these events we're talking about, these sporting events, I mean, I remember having Astros season tickets and Jose Cruz and sitting in those seats and going with my family. And then when I went back and toured it, I came with Erica Bagwell that day. And her memories of being there and going through having
she had tears.
It was truly and then I remember seeing Elvis there, and I was so inspired also that Billie Jean King and this what was it called, the
Battle of the Sexes.
And women won. I'm like, I'm a feminist, I'll say it. I want to have rights. Sometimes I want to be better. Sorry, but not really. But I just there is so much tied to what's happened there to preserve it and to keep it going. So let's talk about the steps. Like how does that, so now we have the idea. How does one do it when there's not a blueprint for this? And there's so much need in so many places, and there's limited funds. So how do we baby step this, ladies?
That's like to say, if it was easy, it would have been
done already.
Yes.
And there's no doubt. It's complicated. It's hard.
Is.
Talk about, a big project. This is a giant project.
Because environmentally, is there remediation?
So fortunately, all of that has been done. So the county has, there's no debt on the building. All of the environmental remediation has been done, and the building is solid as a rock. I mean, it is structurally sound. I mean, you can imagine it was so over-engineered. Would you want to be standing under the dome when the team pulled the scaffolding away for the first time?
Oh,
I would not.
Exactly.
This has never been done before. So the building is in good shape. The hurdle is, so what do we do with it? What is that use? What is that? And we at the Astrodome Conservancy are fervent in our advocacy for public access. So we call for public access. It's always been a public building. It should remain open and accessible at some points to the public. And so figuring out that jigsaw puzzle that is public access and private investment and the county's role and the tenants at NRG Park, I mean, it really is, it's challenging, and it doesn't happen quickly.
That being said, the building is safe and secure because it's listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and it's a Texas Antiquities Landmark. So it's got all the recognitions, and it's not going anywhere. Like she said, it's solid as a rock. It could be there for many, many years. We just want it to be there and be utilized and have some sort of a vibrant future. And people call us quite a lot with ideas. I mean, we get ideas all the time that are...
I would even venture daily at this point.
Really?
We're getting either emails or phone calls.
That's
at
so
least
helpful.
4 out of 5 days during the work week.
And one of these eventually is going to work.
Yes.
One of these is going to be the right combination of, a big enough vision or a flexible enough use with some private funding that we can get the public funding behind. And as you said, yes, there's lots of things that are needing support and public money right now. And it's hard to argue with the things that need our public support at the county. So,
but at the same time, Houston doesn't shy away from big projects. I mean, you've been involved in the Herman Park Conservancy for many years now. I mean, they're undertaking, have completed and now launching another $250 million project.
We were talking about this yesterday. The parks have really taken some leadership on these grand civic projects. So Herman Park is the oldest, and we had a previous 20-year campaign that was $120 million, and now we have a new campaign that, in the end will be probably $250 million. And with Herman Park, we can take it bit by bit. We just we bite off a chunk, we do what we can do,
right,
and then we build on that. I mean, Memorial Park, which just launched their incredible new tunnel,
the prairie and tunnels,
that is also a big vision.
And I'm really good friends. I went to college with, family friends with Robert Clay and Emily Clay.
Well, gosh.
That gave the Clay family did a very significant role in that. And I love the hat party at the park. So you'll find me there every year. But it's so meaningful, I think, from a standpoint of, I see it the most when I go to New York. That there's buildings around this green zone, and thank God you have this green zone, and that's really visually, maybe because I'm a visual person, what shows me that we have to do this, because industry comes in, and I am all a proponent of business and success, but it is a big part of people. Again, blue zones, being outside, connecting with the earth, taking your kids, being in community. All those touchstones are there with the parks.
Yes.
And it's a difficult thing when there's people impoverished to say, how do we give to the parks? But at the same time, it is part of this whole community that we're building. It's a vital part of it.
Yes, it's so true.
Yeah.
And, raising up these big visions is certainly, that's what we're here for with the Astrodome. And what you said brings up to me a community engagement campaign. So over the years, we've been in existence since 2016. And we're doing step by step what we can do at this point. And one of the things that we did, the first thing was an Urban Land Institute technical assistance panel. So the Urban Land Institute brought in experts from around the country to study what should be done with the Astrodome.
And this was the question, can it be reused? Can and should we reuse the Astrodome? And overwhelmingly, the panel of experts, landscape architects, engineers, financiers, preservationists said, absolutely, it can and should.
Wow.
Should be saved.
And that shouldn't be taken lightly. Like, for all those people to agree. Is in itself
and
incredible.
The organization, although a very forward-looking organization of developers.
Yes.
These are the Urban Land Institute is really geared and populated by developers, and so for that to come out, I think was really a stake in the ground for the political leadership at Harris County, and for those of us pre-Conservancy who were just caring, who were there saying, wait, this building has value now and in the future. And so as a result of that Urban Land Institute study, Phoebe and her co-founders stepped up and said, we need a private nonprofit voice for the Astrodome that can work with Harris County, but can go out and talk to private investment and other public entities and interested individuals to start building this coalition.
And it was something that the county did. The county commissioned that ULI study along with the National Trust to put up some funding for that too. So that was just a great first step. And they recommended a nonprofit to work with the government entity, which is the county. And I had experience with that with the city through the Julia Idison Library Project, which was the oldest library that, we were founded with Mayor Bill White, and we put together a board and we raised the funds and we renovated the library and added on the archival storage wing and, gave it new life essentially. And all the work with parks are nonprofits working with the city. The county just didn't have very much experience with that. And so we sort of raised our hand and said, let's think about doing something like that where you have a nonprofit partner. And so we are the nonprofit partner with the county, and we work with the Harris County Sports and Convention Corporation, which oversees all of the uses over there at Energy Park. And we have good relationships with county commissioners and with rodeo leadership. And, we might be a little bit of a thorn in their side. We just keep saying, don't forget the Astrodome. Let's think about a plan. How can this be reused?
And actually, COVID gave us a really good opportunity as things slowed down, and as the county pointed its attention and resources, rightfully so, on health and safety issues. It gave the Conservancy an opportunity. And we had the leash from the county to go out and undertake some research and study and technical preparations that any development in the Astrodome is going to need. So we did a financing study looking at alternative methods to finance instead of just public financing, and we undertook a ambitious public engagement campaign, which we titled Future Dome, wherein 8 weeks, we engaged with 7,000 Houstonians. And this was possible, side note, but I think it's it gives context. The same firm who worked with us for our public engagement campaign had worked in Galveston, and in 1 year of public activity and interaction, they talked to 7,000 folks. We did it in less than 2 months because we had the benefit of everyone sitting at home in front of their computer.
Right.
So we had a
more
lot of engagement.
Audience
exactly.
To be connected to it.
Yeah.
And so the rodeo, another thing, I'm really good friends with Brady Carruth was my chairman way back in the day, 15 years ago when I was on a committee. And then Zane was a podcast guest. So we're going to the rodeo with them in March, which is so fun. I get to ride in my first grand entry on her. Shout out to Zane Carruth on her carriage. She was like, "Do you want to ride my carriage?" I was like, "Girl, I need a carriage. I am a Contessa." So I'm adding it to my dream board that I'm going to have a carriage one day. And instead of saying, "Do you want to be on my podcast?" I could say, "Would you like to ride in my carriage?"
Yes,
put me on the list.
But talk about COVID. COVID hit, couldn't have a rodeo, was out there during cook-off, canceled, gave all the scholarships. Like, yes, rodeo's a big party. Yes, it's a reason to get people in the city. But what it does for students, what it does for our community. Again, we're not just talking about saving a building. We're talking about creating opportunities for people to be here, to give back. Danette, my right hand, who we love, she got a rodeo. She was not an FFA girl. She got a rodeo scholarship. So it's incredible the touch points that you can achieve by having a space like this. I'm in a Bible study with a group of women. Amy Pierce is one of them. She just went to Pennsylvania for this incredible event with her son to play soccer, and they had like 30,000 kids in for a competition. She's like, "We need that in Houston." So I'm thinking, oh my God, this could be a place for it because of all the hotels around there and everything. The infrastructure is there. There's so many things that could
I love
give
the way
back.
your mind is already
like connecting,
working.
Yes.
And we talked with Brady and with rodeo leadership.
Okay, good.
And just because we know that they are the biggest thing in town. You know?
Yes.
And they need space.
They need more
They're
space.
growing so quickly that they need.
Yes.
No, I think there's a lot that could be done with the rodeo, and I think that it's just who's going to take the first step.
Yeah.
Who's going to do the initial opening back up, because there's work that needs to be done. It might not be that much work. It might be more simple than people think, but there's going to be some effort to get it back open and usable. But gosh, I think the rodeo has a lot of big thinkers over there, and they have a lot of big plans, and I just think that, gosh, Astrodome could be such a important part of their plan. So when you're on that
I will.
on your carriage
On that
ride.
carriage,
Yes.
I'll be yelling out, "Save the Astrodome!" Is there a chant?
It is now.
we get you a t-shirt to wear when you're riding on the
Hashtag
carriage.
save the Astrodome.
Phoebe's found some great bling from dome bling.
Yes, if I see anything on eBay,
we'll find
I
snatch
think
it up.
for an event, because I always think of fundraising and building awareness as an event, it would be amazing, and I would even sign up for this. We have it on TV. That we could do to bring back like all the uniforms, all that style from back then, because it's such an emotional connection. And I was talking to another podcast guest yesterday, Elizabeth Waggart. She's British and fabulous, and she's a UN ambassador, which is why I was reading about the UN. And she does these incredible initiatives with the Lions Fund to help preserve animals. And but we were talking about, like, why do people buy a luxury item? Why do people buy art? What is it? Because it makes them feel a certain way. It isn't about like needing it. It's about how it makes you feel. And this project is about that, but so far reaching.
Yes.
After that.
I mean, we've also been contacted, when you said fundraising, we've been contacted by several nonprofit organizations in town who would love to have their gala inside the Astrodome.
Yes. Yes. Because we went to Shriners at Reliant, and that was a cold night, but an incredible opportunity.
Yeah. No, there's great interest for that. And, and as I said, they don't need a lot done. Like, they're not asking for it to be a completely renovated space.
They'll take it as is, I bet.
We just have to get beyond the step of getting it back open, the health and safety issues that are affiliated with that. But they're not insurmountable at all. It's just that somebody's got to do it.
Somebody's got to be the voice for it.
So well, I think you guys are amazing somebodies to do it.
Well,
and I'm so inspired by it. Okay, I have to selfishly talk about some more connections that I found when I was researching you. I love dance. Oddly, we're not really involved with the ballet here, but we're supportive of the Vail Dance Festival. So we meet so many of the New York City ballet dancers up there personally. Like, get to hang out with Unity Phelan and like these amazing.
Well, we can compare notes on that because we have friends who go there as well.
Oh, yay.
Yes.
So the Campbells from New York, and then we were able to go to New York City Ballet Gala. But the connection is, I see obviously your fabulous dresses, that you won Dancing with the Stars when, and girl, I had to pass this year, but APAHA, the Asian Pacific group, asked me to dance, and I'm not able to do it with my schedule, but I'm like, please ask me next year, because I was supposed to do it in Vail, and then COVID hit, and I couldn't figure out a way to get there 7 times during COVID on a plane and whatever to rehearse.
Yeah.
But this is one of my bucket list things too, is to get
I love it.
into this. So tell me about that journey.
Oh my gosh, that was a fundraiser for Houston Ballet, and it was the first year. So talk about nervous.
Girl, I have chills for you right now.
Yes, and we had, they get folks from around town.
Yes,
people might know, and then you rehearse hard. Like,
it's a real thing. Yes,
I know. I was scared to death. And
you won. Oh my God.
Were you airborne at any point?
Did you do some twirls?
Yes, upside down and all this.
Yes.
Oh my God, I love it.
It was a little more than 10 years ago, and I was so proud of myself. So I'm just going to encourage you to do that.
It's on my list. It's something
really
I want to do.
Fun. And you know I'm devoted to the ballet, so that's why.
I know that. And we went for the first time as guests with the symphony gala this year, which was just beyond enchanting. It was just so lovely.
Yes.
And
well, good. You're supporting our arts organization.
I am. But my passion is kids and fighting sex trafficking. I had an amazing moment. We have junior boards at the schools, and we were able to take these high school girls to Austin to meet with senators and congressmen's aides and talk about why they want help in doing this. And how I'm tying it back is to be at the Capitol, to be in that space, to feel that empowerment. I saw the power of a building too.
Yeah.
And what that meant to them and them having a voice in it. So I think that there's so many tie-ins to this and the journey we're all on.
Place matters.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be a farmhouse, it can be the Astrodome, it can be, just a plot of land.
So every guest I ask about balancing motherhood. You have to tell your story this morning because you look fabulous. But your son wanted to ride a bike to school, so you, Cutie Pie, rode a bike to school and we ride for the podcast.
Yes, we ride our bikes often. And usually I go home and sit at my desk and go to work. But this morning I said, babe.
How do you balance it? Because it's something people don't just want to talk from when your hours are. It's constant.
No. Well, I am very fortunate and have been strategic in I guess the choices that I've been allowed to make. So I've always worked at home. I've always been kind of not self-employed, but been an independent worker. And so I had a good 15 years of that foundation of discipline, getting up, doing, knowing how to balance the laundry and the grocery shopping with the conference calls and the meetings and the travel. And so I feel very grateful for having had that experience, because then when I added my babies on top of that, that discipline was necessary. And I have the fortune of flexibility. I work for an amazing board of directors, very diverse, various walks of life, many of whom in our leadership are all very active and involved community leaders and mothers. And so Phoebe knows when my daughter's school calls and says, "You've got to come get her," that there's flexibility. And so mine are little right now. I'm starting to see the light at the end of that tunnel for a little more consistency back in my work day. But I'm committed to this project. I'm committed to the work, and I'm passionate about it. I mean, if I didn't love this work, then balancing this juggling act that I do between the kids and the house and this great project would be exhausting and not rewarding. But it drives me, because we might be at this Astrodome table for a while.
Well, when I started, I said, this might be a 20-year project. And everybody's rolling their eyes, well, now it's been about 8. So we're still hanging in there. But I will say, Beth is amazing. You really do an incredible job with balancing your work and your family and your out-of-town relatives, and that's just how it goes.
That's how it goes.
It is. Okay. And then you just got together with your family for its first vacation in 5 years.
With everybody all together. Yes.
I mean, and that's real life too. Like COVID happens and you've got, so tell us about, is it all magical? Are there moments? How do you make it all work?
Well, I remember those days when my kids were so young, and now our kids are in their 20s and early 30s. And, it's still sometimes a challenge. motherhood goes on, and life goes on and on.
Y'all had the ultimate challenge with Caroline's wedding.
Well,
I mean,
we
talk
had
about a COVID hiccup.
Yeah, our daughter got engaged right before COVID, and then it got postponed twice. So they were engaged for 27 months. I was like,
oh my gosh.
let's just, make
Let's
this
do
happen.
it. But it was,
And it was beautiful.
It
and
was
it was
magical.
perfect.
I saw the pictures.
But that's
you
life.
shared.
That's what we all deal with all the time. I'm sure you deal with stuff too. And the vacation was just that, then they get busy. They get their own jobs, or they might go back to graduate school. And so nobody's free at the same time. And then COVID happened and nobody was traveling. So finally we managed it because our second daughter just finished her graduate program in Master of Architecture at Rice. So we're very proud of her. And that was a little bit of a celebration for her finishing her thesis. And it was a great excuse for a vacation.
Yeah.
That is amazing. So I shared off camera, but Bella's doing a summer math program at Rice for 3 weeks.
Oh, wonderful.
She's a math girl, but she also loves writing. So, and then we're going to UVA and Duke and those this weekend to go look. So it's a scary.
Those are big.
It's such a journey to think of her being gone. But such a blessing that they want to have wings and they want to do what they do. And
I know it's ironic that we train them to leave us.
It is, but we hope that they come back.
Yeah, well, if you they do if you've done your job, right?
Yes, or they just, I guess more so than anything, you want them to find peace and joy in their life. Yeah. And I see that happening even as a teenager, because I think it's even harder to be a teenager now than ever with all this.
That's the part that scares me.
Yes, I am. With social media, although we do love social media. So let's talk a little bit about, let's transition.
That was good.
Yeah. So let's transition into how will people find you on social media? How can they get involved? Like, what would the next step be for someone that's like, I want to do my part?
We love those people, and we are hunting for more and more of them. So you can follow us. We are on fairly active on Instagram and Twitter, and it's just at Astrodome Conservancy. I think on Twitter we're at Astrodome Fans. We've got a Facebook page. We communicate mostly. We have got an incredible list of contacts and supporters. We have almost 7,000 folks who engage with us regularly. So we send out, are beginning a regular or consistent e-newsletter that will go out quarterly to communicate. Activity has really ramped up in the last year, and so we have lots of news to share, and we'll continue to do that. We've got an incredible board member, Susanna Cardy, who has manned our social media thus far, and she is just so gifted going back into the archives and finding these amazing and hilarious and poignant photographs and sharing those, because as you've said, you've made the point so well, the Astrodome is about the memories and what happened and the connectivity, and so by pulling those, highlighting those in our Instagram feed, we can draw folks in and help folks kind of tap into those memories and imagine what the future might be.
So we can get their email addresses on our website, right?
You can go to astrodomeconservancy.org and sign up to receive news and events. We do a couple of events through the year. We are excited to add to those in 2023. We do have our signature event coming up on April 15th, which is our third annual Race for the Dome. So for anyone who hasn't been out to NRG Park or around the Astrodome recently, it's a great opportunity. We have a course that races around. You can walk, run, bring your pup, who's now abandoned us.
I know, she was like, y'all have been talking way too
Grace
long.
Kelly.
There's lots of pets out there.
Exactly. Walk or run around the dome in NRG Park, and we do it in early April to coincide with the birthday of the Astrodome. We like a good party, so we follow the race with an after party that that celebrates the anniversary of the first event or the opening of the Astrodome. Last year we had a dome-shaped birthday cake that everyone got a piece of. So it's a lot of fun, and we encourage folks to come out. Registration for that will open in early March, so you can check our website as well for that.
All right.
Yeah.
So exciting. Thank you so much, ladies.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I
This
love
is
your
fun.
enthusiasm for this and this whole field. So
And we'll get you that shirt for your Cara Drive.
Okay, good. All right. Be watching for that. Okay, everybody.